Now it is time and our great pleasure to introduce to you our classmates, fellows and scholars of the class of 2017. As the program on your seats indicate, this group is comprised of Lumen Scholars, Honors Fellows, Elon College Fellows, Business Fellows, Communication Fellows, Teaching Fellows, Periclean Scholars, International Fellows, and Isabella Canon Leadership Fellows. We invite you to read about each of these in your program. For now, we would like to highlight some of the impressive qualities of this graduating class of Fellows and Scholars.
These Fellows and Scholars entered Elon University 4 years ago, with records already setting them apart as future leaders of the 21st century. Their academic profiles matched incoming classes at William & Mary, Boston College, and Davidson. Over the past 4 years, they have made the most of an Elon education. First and foremost, they've excelled in class. The majority of the people in this group will graduate tomorrow with a 3.5 or above cumulative GPA, earning them the Latin honors of magna cum laude, summa cum laude, or cum laude. An impressive number of our classmates sitting here have also been inducted into the most prestigious academic honor societies, including Phi Beta Kappa and Phi Kappa Phi.
Representing almost every undergraduate major and minor, they have engaged in the 5 Elon experience: study abroad, internships, undergraduate research, service, and leadership, at rates exceeding the campus average. They have engaged in study abroad around the globe, from LA and New York to Denmark and Spain, from Peru to Brazil, from Namibia to Ethiopia, India, and China. They have interned with CNN, ESPN, Credit Suisse, National Geographic, Fidelity, and Ronald McDonald House Charities. They have won every Elon University endowed scholarship that supports undergraduate research, delivered more than 200 presentations of their research or performance of their creative work, and have a number of professionally peer-reviewed research articles in print. They have completed untold hours of service, regionally, nationally, and internationally, and they have held an immense range of campus leadership roles, from multi-faith student government and student media to the sales team and the Elon poll. She's the first to name a few. And they have been leaders as NCAA Division I student athletes, orientation leaders, executive interns, and tutors, to list only a few.
As they graduate and move beyond Elon's bricks, this year's Fellows and Scholars will walk away with highly competitive and prestigious international fellowships, including Fulbrights and a Gates Cambridge, or look ahead to positions with leading companies and service organizations across the nation or the globe, or pursue graduate studies in the halls of leading research universities like Penn State, Washington University, and St. Louis, and Emory. May we now ask that this year's class of Fellows and Scholars please stand to receive our recognition of their excellence. Thank you.
Thank you. Fellows and Scholars, let's extend a big thank you to our families and friends who have supported us through our long journeys to this day, and who will continue to support us as we transition to our next set of adventures. Video.
Go ahead. Let's introduce it.
It has been a wonderful adventure, and now we look forward to sharing some of that adventure with you. Let's take a look.
I'm a first-generation college student, and so my parents didn't have this opportunity. They didn't have the opportunity to come to university, stay on campus for 4 years, eat at a dining hall, join a fraternity, sing in an a cappella group. They didn't have that, and so my biggest thing coming here was to do it all.
There is a stereotype about the college student that kind of just rolls out of bed and shows up to class. So to be an honors fellow, it's understood that you're kind of taking on an extra academic challenge during your experience at Elon.
It's really for those students, in my opinion, that really want to push themselves and take advantage of that one extra opportunity at Elon.
So they push you a little bit, but you also have to push yourself. It's a self-guiding program.
Which is why I love the Fellows program, because They have given me a bunch of resources to succeed and grow.
A lot of the fellows probably ended up choosing Elon, partly because they became a fellow, but you stay because of the people.
It's kind of hard to understand unless you really have gone to Elon, but once here, I think it's just the way things happen at school, at college coffee. You have very close relationships with your professors. Talking to friends, I don't know if all my friends from home, like from high school, their professors know all their names or where they sit in the class.
They were always going to be there for me, and they were always going to support what I did. And that really encouraged me to go for the leadership position of president.
To be a fellow means to be a leader on campus. Becoming a fellow was really that first step in all of these other experiences I've had as an Elon student.
So whether it was study abroad, internships, academic pursuits, everyone's done some pretty cool stuff.
I'd known since I was 15 or 16 that my one goal in life was to travel the world and to see everything.
74% of students will study abroad in their time at Elon. And that is a number that continues to grow. And I think it's because of the programs and the relationships that they already have set up.
Our cohort went to Cuba before it was really easy to go to Cuba, and got to see amazing things, see a totally different culture, a totally different economy in our first year at Elon.
I kept having to pinch myself because every time I looked up, I said, this is like something you see on a desktop, but this is real life.
So I'm just really, really grateful that Elon has opportunities like this that allows us to go out and see the world, and for me to go back twice to India and to live there for months at a time.
I think it changed kind of my whole outlook on education in a global setting.
It's really the first step to my success story at Elon,
Which is why I'm very proud to be a fellow.
In a short video clip, it's hard to tell you everything about our work and the experiences as fellows and scholars that we've received. To help give some more personal examples, we'll have a few of our classmates share their own research experiences and their times at Elon. After this formal program, we invite you to come speak with all the fellows and the scholars further during the reception. One example of the amazing work our classmates has accomplished is from Kelly Reagan. Kelly is an accomplished Elon College Fellow, as well as a Glenn Raven and Watts Scholar. Kelly will graduate with a major in applied mathematics and minors in computing sciences and public health studies. Through an integrated lens of her academic areas of focus, Kelly has done research that advances our understanding of the spread of disease. Please welcome Kelly to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Perry, for the introduction. So my research focused on making a mathematical model of the spread of dengue fever between multiple communities with humans traveling between the communities. For those of you who don't know, dengue fever is a disease spread by mosquitoes similar to malaria. In order to create my own set of differential equations, I combined two models, a malaria model and a general dengue fever model. Then, once I combined the two models, I ran simulations in a computer program called Mathematica. With these simulations, I varied the number of humans, the number of mosquitoes, the visitation time, and the number of initial cases in each community. Through modeling the dynamics between three communities in Sri Lanka, I modeled the simulations in Colombo, Sri Jayawardenepura Kotte, and Peliagoda. And I found that outbreaks occur in largely populated communities, and it occurs sooner in time than when an outbreak occurs in a suburban or rural community. I first started talking to Dr. Karen Yokley and Dr. Krista Rangala about researching dengue fever during my second semester at Elon. Then I actually started the research process during my third semester here. After 9 months of reading background research, recreating results of previous models, and really trying to understand the mathematical terminology used in each of these papers, I was finally able to run my own model in this mathematical program. Most of my research was running an idea Mathematica and seeing if the results made any sense. Then, during my senior year, we decided to use real towns in Sri Lanka. And I looked at the outbreaks occurring with only one case of dengue fever being introduced to each of these communities. During my total of 8 semesters and 1 summer of doing research, I certainly had successes and challenges. One of the biggest challenges was coding and finding the errors in my code. Another challenge was the initial lack of information I had about this disease and about how to mathematically model it. Then one of my biggest successes was being able to present at a national conference in my field and also being able to explain what I was doing to my friends because they had no idea what I was talking about. So one of my favorite stories relating to my research journey was when I had a mathematical biology research conference at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. So I had a massive 36 by 48 poster like you see over here with me, and I had no way of transporting it. So my dad convinced me to put it in a trash bag, a big, black, hefty trash bag. And since everything my dad says is usually correct, I was like, okay, I'll put it in this trash bag. So I traveled to VCU with my poster. It's raining that day, and I walk in. I'm the only undergrad student. The rest of these graduate students had custom-made poster tubes. They had 3D printed poster tubes, and I have this bag that it's too big, and it's flapping in the wind, and I just did not know what to do with it. And so I'm walking like this, and they were like, okay, I don't think this girl's actually a legitimate researcher. But when I got there, I walked in, put my poster right in front of the door so everyone could see I'm actually a legitimate researcher, and got some really positive feedback about my research. I was known as the girl with the trash bag, but ironically, they did accept me into graduate school, so I will be getting my doctorate degree in mathematical modeling at VCU this fall. Thank you. And I just hope they lend me a poster tube next time. Thank you.
Fellows and scholars have the opportunity to work in a wide range of disciplines, from mathematics, in the case for Kelly, to sciences, social sciences, humanities, education, and business. Another wonderful example of an active undergraduate researcher is Mary Claire Schultz. Mary Claire is strategic communication major, psychology minor, and inductee to Phi Kappa Phi and Phi Beta Kappa. With the support of her Lumen Prize, Mary Claire has studied a corporate social responsibility initiative developed by the world's largest beverage company to empower 5 million women by 2020. Please give Mary Claire a warm welcome.
When you think of Coca-Cola, what do you picture? Is it the drink's classic red and white logo or a glass soda bottle? Maybe it's the distinctive taste of the soda or one of Coke's many taglines. Whatever you're picturing, it probably does not have to do with international women's empowerment. During the fall of my sophomore year at Elon, with the looming presence of an honors thesis on my mind, I spent a lot of time thinking about questions. What did I wonder about? How would I find something I was ready to commit 2 years of my life to studying? Then, on display in Elon's own Belk library, I found a book called Ethical Chic, which outlined how beloved brands use corporate social responsibility, or CSR, to position themselves as ethically responsible to different publics. Sometimes CSR was extremely successful for these companies, and their reputations were built on the idea of ethical business practices, and other companies were not so lucky. As you may have guessed, I studied Coca-Cola's CSR. Coke is interesting in that it sort of experienced both sides of the CSR coin. You may have heard of the company's attempts to mitigate its effects on obesity, which is pretty ironic if you've ever read a nutrition label on a can of Coke. The company has also attempted to address issues of water sustainability amid closures of its factories in India for contributing to water pollution in that area. And then there's the 5x20 initiative, which is the specific CSR initiative that I was studying. It's Coca-Cola's push to empower 5 million women by 2020 in its global supply chain by providing business trainings, financial services, and mentorship opportunities. The 5x20 initiative has won multiple awards and is a major departure from Coke's previous CSR. Through my in-depth study of the 5x20 initiative, I found that its communications centered on one main strategy: relationship building. As Coke works to build relationships with partner organizations, local governments, and female entrepreneurs themselves, it is positioning itself as a company that cares about women who make up the majority of its consumer base. Relationships built with very specific publics may explain why some of you might not immediately associate women's empowerment with Coca-Cola, but why some government officials, policymakers, and other aspiring female entrepreneurs do. Relationships are also what provided me with much needed guidance during the challenging moments this thesis threw my way. One unexpected relationship I found was during my semester abroad in Copenhagen. I was really interested in learning more and gaining more of an international perspective on CSR in my time in Denmark, which some say is actually the birthplace of corporate social responsibility. So on a whim, I reached out to an esteemed communications professor at Aarhus University, whose research I had read previously when I was working on my own thesis. To my surprise, not only did she agree to speak with me, she also invited me to travel across Denmark to meet with her in person, to discuss my research, and to give me advice on how to continue with my project. That meeting provided me with a unique international perspective on my own research, and also a new connection I know I can call upon if I'm ever back in Denmark. I think many of us at Elon will tell you that connections and meaningful relationships formed in our time here are what makes this university unique. My understanding of the importance of relationships is one of the main takeaways of my thesis, but it's also something that I've been able to apply to my own life. Now, as I move to New York City to work in a public relations firm after graduation, I look forward to the meaningful personal, professional, and intellectual relationships to come in my life after Elon. Thank you.
Coming into some of these classes was actually pretty difficult. I had a lot of catching up to do in a lot of areas. And, you know, college fellows in particular provided me with the skills to be able to play catch up and to make these things happen and to figure out what in the world it was that I was doing, because I had no idea.
Even if you're a gifted student, which a lot of honors fellows have grown up hearing that phrase, sometimes you are really hard on yourself and sometimes there can be self-doubt. And I think my time at Elon has minimized that a lot and pushed me to have more confidence in whatever I'm doing.
At a lot of other institutions, especially where you have students who are strong academically, there's a sense of competition and wanting to tear each other down so that you look better. But at Elon, it's about building each other up so that you're all better.
You know, it was a struggle at times. I had to do some extra work that my peers didn't necessarily have to do, but at the same time, I think it really prepared me for going out and you know, now I know how to do research properly. Now I know, how to find sources. Now I know how to take some of the skills that I use in fellows in my first year of being here at Elon and apply them to these capstone level classes that I'm taking currently. And so I think it definitely is a different experience, but for all the right reasons.
It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of sleepless nights, but it's been totally worth it.
When I think back, I don't think about the papers I stayed up writing or the extra assignments. I think about what are the positive things that I got out of the program in general, the experiential opportunities that I got, and also I think when you think about the extra work that you have to do, it ultimately makes you better.
Sometimes it takes someone else to tell you, you can do that, so go do it, when you might not see that in yourself to start with.
Basically, studying abroad anywhere is an experience in and of itself. It really just pushes you to understand a different culture. Being able to start to learn and appreciate a culture that you are living in, not just looking at on TV or sitting in Spanish class and you can leave Spanish class. No, this is, you're in the country and you better learn that language. You better learn how to communicate, how to get a taxi, how to order at a restaurant, and you start to learn when these things are almost survival-based, you pick up on them pretty quick.
I went to Namibia twice, not because I'm an adventurer. I went to Namibia to discover it, but in the process I discovered myself. And the same thing happened with Morocco, and the same thing happened in Peru when I did a winter term there. And the same thing happened at Elon on this campus. In every organization that I joined, in every leadership position that I took, I had to push myself to try something new, to deal with things that aren't gonna work, everything that can go wrong is gonna go wrong. But that's the point. Because you're never gonna make that mistake again. You're never going to deal with that same exact issue again, because you're gonna remember it. If life was perfect, it wouldn't be fun.
We could not have pushed through these struggles and achieved what we have without the leadership, support, and world-class mentoring we receive from our faculty and program directors who run these fellows and scholars programs. Please join us in recognizing these directors and faculty members. Please also join us in recognizing the deans who ensure the support for these programs and their directors. With the expert guidance of his mentor, our next speaker has completed award-winning research focused on the intersection of mythology and globalizing forces, such as tourism and religious conversion among the indigenous Quechua in the Peruvian Andes. Ben Bridges is an anthropology major with minors in art and Latin American studies, as well as Spanish, and he was an inductee into both Phi Kappa Phi and Phi Beta Kappa, and will be pursuing a PhD in folklore at Indiana University this fall. Please welcome Ben Bridges.
Let me tell you a story. In southern Peru, a few hours outside of Machu Picchu, there sits a small town called Huioc. It's said that a long time ago, a young boy would appear in the region who looked ethnically different than all the other indigenous Quechua villagers nearby, but he would wear the same poncho and textiles seen in the community. Community members soon realized that whenever this boy was present, they had good harvest. So naturally they thought, let's just kidnap him so we always have good harvest, because it just makes sense. But the little boy didn't think so. So when the villagers set out to capture him, he just vanished. Community members in Huioc decided to build a church in his honor and host an annual parade to extol the young boy, inviting him into the community. This story is one of the many that I collected during one of my 3-month stints down in Peru, conducting a research project that explores the intersection of mythology and globalization among the indigenous Quechua. Now, when I say myth, I'm not talking about some fantastical, fictitious story that science has proven wrong. And in fact, myth and science can often go hand in hand. Instead, as a genre of narrative folklore, myths are the ahistorical, sacred narratives that can be, and often are, applied to contemporary circumstances. That secret component about myth is what makes it salient among the people who share it, meaning that myths often hold key values in certain communities. So where science asks how, myth asks why. Some things that we regard as true are simply unexplained by hard quantitative data. And that's where I want to insert not only my research, but also my own life today. That story that I shared at the beginning, it's called Niño Melchor, and it's packed with many integral themes in Quechua mythology, but I want to focus on one of them in particular, boundary crossing. Boundary crossing generally is when an individual leaves one place and goes to another. So in Niño Melchor, we see an instance of incoming boundary crossing as an outsider comes into the community and the community benefits accordingly. However, in Quechua mythology, outgoing boundary crossing is often paired with peril. So in thinking about the emergent themes in Quechua myths, while reflecting on my 2 trips to Peru, I could recall 2 instances of boundary crossing, one outgoing and one incoming. The first time that I went down, to put it lightly, things did not go very well and made a lasting impact, quite literally. So one night I was in Lima and I was crossing the street and a truck collided with me head on. I had a fractured skull, a broken jaw, and a brain in desperate need of operation. So one medically induced coma and an emergency brain surgery later, and I was airlifted back to my home in Charlotte with my parents to go through 2 months of recovery. So against every single odd and expectation that was set out by doctor after doctor, I lived. And more than that, And more than that, I lived, but I've recovered to be essentially the exact same person that I was before, aside from a little dent in my head. So that's the one change. So outgoing boundary crossing for me was dangerous, but I made it through, which weirdly falls in line thematically with some of the Quechua myths that I recorded, as more young people are undergoing outgoing boundary crossings nowadays. While they're often warned against it because of the inherent dangers, it's still possible to make it through. So you might think that I learned a lesson from this, that outgoing boundary crossing is dangerous, you should never leave the country, what the hell happened to the whole look both ways thing before crossing the street? But no, I didn't learn that lesson because I wanted to go back to Peru to finish my research project that I started. So through a semester of planning, financial backing from the Lumen Prize, the somewhat reluctant approval of my parents, thank you, and the undying support from my research mentor, Dr. Tom Mold, wherever you are, thank you, I went back. The only difference this time was that I had a satellite GPS phone with a big red SOS button, just in case. After nearly 3 months of living in Weoke, conducting interviews, working on the farm, chopping wood, learning to weave, my host stats is something to me that really struck a chord. After leaving an event that was reserved for exclusively community members, I asked why I was allowed to attend, and he responded with, "Porque eres comunero," you are a community member. So then when my actual family visited Peru at the end of the summer, I felt like I was welcoming them into a second home. My lived experiences of boundary crossing reminded me of the power of myth. Now, I'm not saying that the stories of what happened to me can be classified as myths, nor am I saying that because I'm an honorary community member that the values in Weoke stories are intended to be applied to my life. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that my research endeavors illuminate some parallels between my findings and my life experience. So as we transition out of the undergraduate life and continue our intellectual journeys, we're undergoing outgoing boundary crossings. Though they might appear dangerous at first, places away from home can become homes away from home. I'm excited to see, and I hope you are too, what new homes are out there that offer similar levels of support, opportunity, and relationships that we've experienced from our home here at Elon. Thank you.
I know my fellows class is super ambitious. Like from day one, someone was working for a newspaper in Greensboro as a first year, and I was executive producer of Durham Bulls baseball my freshman year. And so I'm just so happy that I have my class to push me to help to do great things. And yeah, I love my fellows class.
We knew we were all going through the same thing together, even if our classes and research differed. I mean, at Elon we have an enormous amount of students doing research, and getting to see the differences between them is pretty impressive. Surf Day is a day off from classes when all the students get to showcase the awesome work that they've been doing.
We have a whole day dedicated to just showcasing students and their research. My research is on food nutrition and food insecurity.
We're studying mitochondrial and nuclear DNA of these lizards out in southwestern Arizona.
So my project is on a group of women in South India called Devidasis. So I spent this past month traveling around 3 different states and collecting interviews with the people who worship the Devidasis.
My research is pertaining to mixed race identity in the United States. I, as a mixed race person, was really interested in that, and there are not a lot of resources. There's such a really cool feeling when you get to apply something that's really personal to you in a classroom setting.
I've always been interested in what ways can we kind of increase the quality and the quantity of media representation of women of color. That's really important to me, and so I like that through my research, specifically focusing on social media. It's a new platform in which you don't have to rely on traditional media to find representation of yourself.
I want to get out there and continue doing service work and community outreach and learning about the social issues that exist right here in Alamance County.
We have so many students here who are awesome at what they do, honestly, whether it's athletics, whether it's academics, whether it's the combination of both, and you really do see that reflected in their accomplishments.
I can't really imagine having gone through Elon without the lacrosse team or without the teaching fellows or education program. So I'm really grateful for those experiences that I've had on this field about how to communicate and how to have successful relationships with people and to be a supportive teammate, and I think that those are all qualities that I'm going to take with me into the classroom. Even if I help one kid and change one kid's life, it'll be worth it for me to pursue this career. Hopefully I'll get to serve as the mentor to them that I've had while here at Elon.
A lot of people that I'm surrounded by here at Elon really inspire me and push me to be my best self. And not having those people a 5-minute walk from my door anymore is definitely going to be an adjustment.
Although it's definitely a journey of ups and downs, it goes by extremely fast. And I think that a lot of us can agree that we wouldn't trade it for any other experience.
I'm a first-generation college student too, and first-generation American. I don't know, it was something about this campus that made me feel right from the beginning once I stepped on here that one March weekend, and it's like I never wanted to leave. I'm so happy to begin that college legacy here in the United States for my family with Elon University. It's been the best ride of my life.
And I feel ready to go out into the real world because Elon has given me the resources to go out and succeed.
Our next speaker is no stranger to accomplishments, all while being one of the most humble people you will ever meet. Lena DeHall is an international studies and strategic double major, religious studies minor, Lumen scholar, international fellow, and Elon's first Gates Cambridge Scholarship Award winner. Lena has conducted groundbreaking research on the power and role of social media in shaping international action and personal agency in the midst of crisis. Please welcome President Leo Lambert and Lena DeHall to the stage.
So this is one amazing student. Lena, give us a brief summary of your incredible research.
So my study explores the role of social media in shaping agency, youth agency in specifics, and in generating action during crisis situations, with a specific look at my home country, Nepal, after the 2015 Gorkha earthquakes. And I really wanted to understand not only the role of social media during this difficult time, but also what it meant to be offline in a country where only 40% of the population has access to the internet. So I returned to Nepal on 2 occasions, April 2015, shortly after the earthquake, and then the next year in 2016, and collected over 50 narratives from some incredible youth who did amazing things, and they represented both offline and online communities. And I just recognized through my work the power of social media in shaping and harnessing collective agency during difficult times, not only in an organizing capacity, but also in terms of coping, and also how privileged it is to have access to the internet and how privilege exists in virtual communities themselves. And my intention for the study was actually a product from a lot of readings with my mentor, Dr. Musa Idris, who I credit so much to, where I found a lot of debate among scholars who argue that disaster management is often dominated by top-down relief efforts. So I really wanted to highlight the creative capacity of youth and talk about that instead of, in terms of their vulnerability.
So we all know research is not a straight line process, and challenges come into the process. You met a big one right initially in that you were originally thinking about a different project, and then disaster struck. That was one challenge. Walk us through the hardships you faced in your research.
Yeah. So I received notification of the Lumen Prize 3 days before the earthquake. And it was kind of a moment where, you've worked so hard on this application, your heart is set in a specific research topic. I actually found out that the research location where my community was severely affected. So it was a matter of thinking with and strategizing with my mentor, Dr. Musa Idris, and looking at what questions are better to ask and more purposeful at this time. And it takes a lot of, courage, and dealing with the tragedy as a human first, and then as a scholar. Those are two different things. And so it was a matter of finding first myself as a human, and then as a scholar, and then asking better questions, I think. Those were two main ingredients in really helping me get back on that path and keep going.
Good for you. Tell us about what you're going to do as a Gates Cambridge scholar, and specifically what you're going to do in graduate school at Cambridge University.
Yeah. So I'm super, super, super excited. I will be joining a cohort of over 90 scholars from all over the world who are so incredible. I'm so humbled to just be on that list. And we'll be all united under the common idea of improving the lives of others in our respective fields. And we're given the freedom to work on projects together as a cohort, as a community. I will specifically be studying modern South Asian studies, and I see that as a product of so much of my time at Elon in terms of crafting my lens as a researcher, and I'm sure a lot of you can identify with that in your individual projects, this idea that now you have this lens, you know like what contributes to it, and you have faith in it, and that's a big part for me in terms of me doing further research in South Asia, in especially looking further in the role of social media in South Asia. So I'll continue to be doing research, but I'll also be joining this incredible community, and I'm super excited.
Well, we're so proud of you. Lena spoke at the dedication of the School of Communications complex earlier this year and was talking about looking for colleges in the United States and typing into Google, good communication schools, United States of America. And it led her right to Elon. So
I'm really thankful I put in those specific search terms, otherwise, who knows?
I will forever be grateful to Google for bringing us Lena DeHall. Lena, congratulations to you. Well done.
Thank you, President Lambert and Lena. Before we close this formal portion of the event, let's give our classmates, fellows, and scholars of the class of 2017 another round of applause.
Before we end this program, we have a song steeped in Elon tradition, written in 1921. The Elon Fight Song continues to embody the rich tradition of women and men attending and succeeding here at Elon University.
I think the biggest thing that a lot of us are thinking today is just thank you to our families for supporting us. I know that it was probably kind of hard for my parents to let me make the 3,000-mile journey across the country to pick a new school, but I think that the journey from California to North Carolina was definitely worth it. And whether you're from North Carolina or another state, I think it's fair to say everyone knows how special Elon is. So just a big thank you to our families and our support systems for letting us have this Elon experience. So here's to dear old Elon, faithful and bold.
Here's to her banner of maroon and gold. Here's to men and women who have come and gone, singing the victor's song of old Elon.
We thank you all for the support you have given us through this adventure at dear old Elon.
Now, I think it did stop raining, but feel free to stay and join us in the atrium and around the perimeter of the Grand Hall for food, drink, good conversation, and to find out more about what we've been up to these last 4 years. Thanks, and have a good evening. Long live Elon.